Hey everybody, welcome back to Bourbon Note. I'm Greg.
I'm Ben.
And today, we're drinking bourbon. All right, Ben, what are we doing today?
All right, we're doing a video on brands/distilleries you might be passing up in the store, but we think you shouldn't. They're ones that we're excited about exploring more of. And so we want to do, we've done a video before in the past of brands you shouldn't ignore on your way through your bourbon journey, but those were more common.
Actually bottom shelf, but actually turned out to be great.
Yeah, budget friendly, but the very, very common ones. Mm-hmm. So we want to do a video on, as we've done this channel, we explore a lot of different distilleries, a lot of different brands, stuff like that. Some of them are hits, some of them are not. And so we wanted to do a video where we talk about the ones that we have been surprised by, mm-hmm. that we really like, that we recommend you guys check out. So they're going to be ones that are available in the store that you're probably seeing on the shelf and you might be passing them up.
So can you touch on the fact that there are certain, there's maybe top 5 big distilleries.
Yeah.
Just about everything they make is good. It may not be perfect for you, but they do quality stuff.
If we see a Wild Turkey product on the shelf, we pretty much know it's going to be good.
And then there's some super micro distilleries, coming maybe from other states besides Kentucky, and it may be good, it may not be good.
Yep.
But we think there's a spot in the middle where there's some distilleries doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
They produce enough whiskey. Some of them are even sourced, but
for sure.
Really worth giving it a try.
So let's get into the first one here.
Let us.
We got a list here. We've got, bam, this is Broken Barrel. This one happens to be the cask strength one. What's interesting about this particular distillery / brand is that what they do is they take broken whiskey barrels, hence the name, and they'll take staves, or not even just whiskey barrels, like wine barrels, cognac barrels,
right.
And they'll take staves and they'll place them inside the barrel with their whiskey to extract more
secondary
flavor.
Finish kind of thing.
Yeah. And so this one happens to be, they've got the mash bill is 70% corn, 21% rye, 9% malted barley, but the oak bill is the combination of staves that are put in there. And this one's 40% ex-bourbon barrels, 40% new French oak, and 20% sherry cask. So each offering from them
has a different recipe.
Yeah, and so they do single barrel picks. It's kind of like the Maker's Mark, they do the wood finishing.
Yep.
And we've been really impressed with all the ones we've tried.
Totally. We've had a couple of samples.
Yep.
And really impressed.
We were lucky enough to try some single barrel samples that were really, really different oak bills. I think there was a peach brandy cask or whatever, and they were all really good. Mm-hmm. So I'm definitely excited about finding more store picks of this.
Totally agree.
And so this is definitely a whiskey nerds type of whiskey. It's not a standard bourbon profile.
Were they expensive?
About $50.
Okay.
So they're right in the middle.
This is 115 proof. This one, they vary obviously, but.
Yep, exactly. And I think the 115 proof was $50.
Okay.
And so it's definitely going to be different. It's not a standard bourbon profile, but for the whiskey nerd, it's something to explore.
Finished
yep.
bourbons, whiskeys.
Yeah, definitely something different. All right, let's bring out the next one. We've got, bam, this is Stellum, MGP source. This is the basic Stellum that you can get anywhere. Mm-hmm. This one is 114.98 proof. And
we had never had it. Well, we did a review of it recently. I think that's out already.
It's coming out within the next couple of days. Here.
Okay. But the first time I ever had Stellum was our local whiskey club did a pick.
Yep.
A store pick or whatever. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
So I went and bought just the basic blue bottle. Mm-hmm. And tried this one. It's still 114 proof and really, really impressed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it's sourced, but it's sourced from MGP and they know what they're doing.
Yeah, and then, different brands when they source from places like MGP or wherever it is, they're doing cool stuff. This is probably sourced.
Probably.
I'm assuming, but they're doing their own thing with it.
But they still blend it and, they make it their own. It's not just put their label on it.
Yep, absolutely. So with Stellum, they've got a bunch of different products. Like they've got some higher end stuff. This is from Barrel Craft Spirits. Mm-hmm. So Barrel Craft is a little more expensive. They run around $90 to $100 for their basic stuff.
And they have a lot of different lines.
For sure.
And so now they're doing,
and
this is their budget line. It's still not that budget.
$60.
Yeah.
But if you see a store pick of this or something like that, chances are it's probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, the next one we've got, this one, if you would have asked me when we first tried the base model of this, I would have maybe not expected that this was going to branch out into a bigger brand.
No kidding.
That it is. But I've been really impressed with BAM. This one is McFarlands Reserve 13 year. But McFarlands Reserve as a brand, I don't know where they're sourcing from, so I don't really have a ton of information about it. But this one you see at Total Wine a lot because it's part of their Spirits Direct.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Total Wine charges about $100 for this particular one. It's the 13 year finished in Cabernet casks. I got this for $50.
At a local liquor store that we have a...
Yep. At Spirits Liquor in Melrose, Minnesota, I'll say it. But so we originally did a line of the kind of the Total Wine Spirits Direct offerings. And McFarlands Reserve, the regular basic, it's a 3-year bourbon, weeded mash bill. It was pretty good.
It was surprisingly good for what it was.
Yep.
And we had very low expectations going to the flight, and we had 2 that kind of stood out as being okay.
And McFarlands was one of them.
Yeah.
And I own that bottle, and I didn't have a problem drinking my way through it, as you know, in just casual pours. Then we did a review of the cask strength, and that one was surprisingly good. Really liked it.
Yeah.
Then we did this one.
Shockingly good.
And especially at the $50 mark.
At $50, it's genuinely a good quality whiskey that you could fight its way against anything in that price point.
Absolutely, for sure.
Proof point, it's finished, but...
Like I said, Total Wine charges $100. I mean, that's getting a little expensive, but I really feel if Total Wine was just charging the $50 for this that they could be charging, they would have a monster on their hands.
The giant 13 on the front and a good-looking bottle. I think they're just,
I mean, it is 13 years. I mean,
totally.
It's a well-aged bourbon for sure. But yeah, it's great.
Yep.
So they have a 4 grain, which I've never had, but I will be picking up. So they've got a couple other things. So don't skip this one. If you don't want to get the basic 90 proof 3-year one for, it's like 17 to 20 bucks.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong.
Sure.
But
what was the proof on this?
90. Yeah, 90.
Okay.
So yeah, check these out. I mean, if they're a little expensive at the 100 proof point, maybe check out the cask strength. I think it was about $40. That's a good one, and I'm definitely looking forward to the 4 grain one. So
awesome.
All right, next up we've got BAM Doc Swensons. So this one, admittedly, we have not explored a whole lot.
True.
This is the only one we've had, but we really, really liked it.
I don't know why I had such low expectations. For whatever reason, went into that review expecting it to be horrible, and it absolutely wasn't.
It was really good. This is 115, I believe. 115 proof. It's a straight bourbon, aged 5 years. This is the blender's cut, and this is also a sourced MGP, just like Stellum. These two are in the same ballpark.
Yes.
But they're a little bit different, But Doc Swensons also has some interesting, the Alter Ego, which is finished in 3 different casks. That's going to probably be one of my next purchases.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. They've got a lot of store picks that I hear great things about. So this one, while we haven't had a ton of experience with it, both really liked it. Definitely want to check out more of it.
Totally.
For sure. So this one was about $50, I think. Something like that. I think the Alter Ego was like 65.
Maybe 70.
Something like that. Yeah. But yeah, Doc Swensons does a whole bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
So it's one of those interesting kind of innovative brands that's doing cool things. All right, speaking of which, BAM, you're no stranger to this if you watch our channel and you've seen our lists of interesting whiskeys.
Yes.
This is NASA Family Reserve. Now this happens to be a brand of a distillery called Cat's Eye, also sourced, but they're doing definitely different stuff. They're releasing some light whiskeys.
Light whiskey, which is a weird name for it. It's a...
Yeah.
I almost brought that bottle, but...
This is what it looks like on the shelf. They're light whiskeys. It's called Obtainium. They're high proof. They're small batch. They're well aged in the 14-year area.
Yep.
I wouldn't say light whiskey is for everybody, but for the whiskey nerd, the whiskey geek, it's definitely something you should at least grab a bottle of and try.
Right.
But this one, the NASA Family Reserve in particular, is a very, very interesting whiskey. And I'm going by memory here. We have a review of this, so go check out the review.
It's been quite a while ago.
I think what they do is they take an already aged bourbon,
Yes.
blend it with a rye distillate, unaged, I believe, age that, and then blend that with the 14-year light whiskey. I think I got that right.
It was something like that. It was such a crazy, like, convoluted, like, process.
It made such an interesting whiskey. Rye forward for sure. If you're a rye fan, you're
Yeah.
gonna love this, I think.
Yes.
107 proof, runs about $40. I mean, I would say for that price point, this is maybe one of the more interesting, good quality whiskeys you're gonna come across.
Yep.
You know,
because if you have like a YouTube channel, or even if you're just like a bourbon nerd, whiskey nerd, I mean, while all of these are unique in their own way, that one really stands out as both being unique and good. And really off, it's just, I don't know, interesting.
Yeah, sometimes unique doesn't always pan out.
That's true.
And, you know, we probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, but we were just talked about this not that long ago. When you're experimenting with craft whiskeys, it's not like experimenting with craft beer. It's much more expensive to buy a bottle of craft whiskey than it is to just get a can or a bottle of craft beer. But when you're getting into beer, if somebody's getting into that, you wouldn't tell them, oh yeah, go get some Budweiser and some Coors or whatever and really explore. You tell them to go find some craft stuff. With whiskey, it can be the opposite. And it's not to say that craft distilleries, obviously, aren't good or worth exploring, but whiskey is one of those things that takes time, it takes money, it takes experience. And it's not always easy for a craft distillery to get good stuff out.
It's a horrible business model.
Terrible business model.
Yeah.
So sometimes they're releasing it a little young, a little proof down, and a little higher price. And more power to them. I mean, nothing against them for that because, again, terrible business model. But sometimes craft distilleries don't always pan out.
And some of these that are sourcing, they're actually doing their own distillation as well. And eventually they'll get there. They'll start releasing their own and stop sourcing from MGP or whoever else.
Yep.
Eventually, but it takes time. I think Old Elk is a perfect example where they were 100% sourced, doing their own stuff, and now they're kind of blending some of their stuff in MGP, and eventually they'll be all their own.
And that's a great segue into our last one. Bam, Wilderness Trail, because they started outsourcing and they're doing their own distillate now. And I'm not sure which bottles, let's see, distilled, aged, and bottled by Wilderness Trail, Danville, Kentucky. So this is their own stuff. We've had 2 expressions of this. In Minnesota, they only have they've got the wheated, the regular rye mash bill, which this is.
Black label thing.
Yep, the wheated is a yellow label, and then they've got a rye. But they also have like some 6-year special ones and maybe
never
some
seen
8-year.
those here in Minnesota,
But we've done reviews of both of the ones that we've had. Love them.
yeah.
Especially the wheated one. Like I was super impressed by that. That became one of my favorite bottles I had on my shelf when I had it.
Yep.
That was just like my regular go-to. Couldn't get enough of it.
And they're not crazy expensive. I mean, all these...
$50.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these mostly run in the $50 range, except for this one at Total Wine, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, we know that there are giant distilleries that probably have a good comparable type bourbon that's less, that's mass produced. But we want to support smaller distilleries that are doing cool stuff, like Doc Swinson that is doing some weird blending and different finishes.
And unfortunately, with what we were talking about, where sometimes smaller distilleries doesn't always pan out with the flavor. Sometimes when you're getting into whiskey, and this happened to me, like I would want to try something. Oh, this is weird. It's it's local, it's whatever.
Yeah.
And then you try it, and the whiskey just isn't that good. And again, sometimes it's just because it's not quite there yet.
Right.
And so it might sour you on trying new brands. You might want to stick with the Knob Creeks, the Wild Turkey stuff, which is great. We love all of those.
Absolutely.
You get into it, you look at, okay, if Heaven Hill's making it, it's probably good. If Beam's making it, it's probably good.
Yep.
Buffalo Trace, Wild Turkey, all these brands. But yeah, so these are a little bit different. I would recommend every bottle on this bar right now.
Totally agree.
At least as a try. Again, the $100 on this one, you're going to have to make a judgment call on that. But
wonder.
at the $50 that I paid for it, if you live in Minnesota and you can go to Spirits in Melrose, go get a bottle of that for $50. Absolutely.
It's taken this far into the video for me to reach this point. But these in some ways are unicorns. Available, moderately-ish priced, but really, really good. There's the unicorns that you're never going to see, you're never going to be able to buy at a normal price.
But they're definitely all different. They all have their own kind of thing to offer. So
yeah, and so everybody has their own flavor profile that they like, and so I happen to really, really like this, but it's not going to be for everybody. And they're doing a whole bunch of different blends that are with different types of wood, and so
yeah, I would say definitely the Broken Barrel for sure for the whiskey geek, you got to try a couple of these.
Because yeah,
it's so different.
The different types of wood they're using are going to totally affect the character.
Yeah, maybe not for beginners, but yeah, for sure. Yeah. Do you have anything else to add about any of these?
I think we've said enough.
All right. Well, this has been a bunch of whiskeys that you should not be skipping in the store. On the Bourbon Note, I'm Ben.
I'm Greg. Till next time. See you next time. You know, a lot of stores have a rule that you're not allowed to skip. Walking only.
Oh, good Lord. I apologize on behalf of Greg for that.